The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Rise! Get yourselves together! Rise! Stand up and live your life! Rise! Get yourselves together! Rise! Hands up high!
Welcome to the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Perroni.
And I'm Heidi Mancini.
And
Who are you?
Oh, Ava Bodie.
Third time on the show, I think?
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. Do we have any announcements?
We want to thank Vegas Meal Prep, Marie Blakeout. Is that how you say her name?
Blakelock.
Blakelock. For sponsoring the Rise Above Show, and Jay Young from City Athletic. They're sponsors of our show, The Rise Above. And we also want to help you advertise or promote your product or service, business on our show. So we are always looking for sponsorship so we can help each other out. So give me a call and we can present some packages to you and we can help each other.
So Marie at mealprepvegas.com, she makes really healthy meals. And she also delivers them, which is perfect for me. Which she's been doing that, and I've been having the fish, which is great. What kind of fish is it again?
Swai.
Swai. I've been eating swai, and it is perfect. It's seasoned just perfect, and she actually does it to the exact calorie, to the exact ounces and everything like that, so I don't have to go through any of the guesswork and stuff like that. But I'm very specific with my food. I'm sure if you have other needs and you want to put in some extra things, and you have other types
Well, she'll
of things
do like
that you
actual meals where she'll do the meat, a little bit of rice or couscous or something, and then a vegetable. So she actually does like 3 things in a meal, or she'll just do the 2 if you want the protein and the vegetable, or however you want. You just tell her how you want it, and she makes it for you.
Now, somebody like me, if I'm training for a show, did I say that? I let the cat out of the bag. I eat like 8 times a day. So food prep is a real hassle. It's really annoying. But it's part of it. It's just a necessary evil. So as you're going through it, it gets really boring, and sometimes when you have somebody else make it for you, it tastes better for some reason. And the way I make it, I'll just take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But the way Marie does it is, it actually looks good, it's colorful, it tastes good, she has just the right spices. Because left to my own devices, I don't do any of that. I just stick it together.
Well, there's a lot
to
to be said for somebody else cooking your food.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I like to go out to eat once. I mean, you cook, but you're not really cooking a lot of different stuff.
No.
I like to go out and enjoy a meal that somebody else cooked. They're taking the dishes away. I don't have to clean the dishes, and just have that whole dining experience. And even a salad, I can't believe I can make a salad at home. And when I eat a salad somewhere else, it tastes so much better than mine. Or if somebody else makes it. A simple thing like a salad. So it's just the way it is. I mean.
And her phone number is 702-624-9286. All right, let's start the show. So today I wanted to talk about communication, and more specifically, preventing communication breakdown. I see this all the time in this pop psychology stuff. They'll say the number one problem with relationships is communication. That isn't even close to being true. Because it's not the lack of communication that's the problem. Because you cannot not communicate. Everything you do, everything you say, everything you don't say, every time you turn your head, you roll your eyes, you walk out of a room, you don't acknowledge the other person, all of these things are communication. So trust me on this. When somebody says that it's the lack of communication that's the problem, they're wrong. Because really what it comes down to, it's the type of communication.
It's how you communicate.
You want to communicate, if it's obviously your partner, you want to communicate in a loving, compassionate, caring way to develop and continue a relationship. All the other things, you're also communicating, just in a very negative way. The other thing is, it's not necessarily the communication that's the problem. And I can kind of prove this, even though it's a soft science. Let's take a dog, for example. We don't even know their language. They don't know our language. So if you start with just basic respect of another human being, the just basic decency, that will get you very far. Just in that alone, you don't have to be an expert on quote-unquote communication. So let's take that. Like, dogs tend to be better therapists than therapists, right? And everybody says, even it's man's best friend, it's woman's best friend. Everybody loves their dog. And we don't necessarily we do not have conversations. It's just, you know that they love you. They show you. And then you reciprocate. So this is a big part of it. What do you think so far?
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I said it's about how you communicate, because when you're in a business relationship, we communicate very clearly and very respectfully to a client, because there's, skin in the game and there's risk. It kind of goes into your pocket. But I think in intimate relationships, people a lot of times start taking each other for granted.
Yep.
And they forget. I asked my mom this question last week. She was in the hospital. She had a knee replacement last week, and she's doing very well. And we just were chit-chatting, just over just nothing important, but just conversations. She was on her pain relievers or whatever, and so she gets a little weird. And
very honest.
She's very honest. And I said to her, Mom, what do you think? I said about this, about, why do you think relationships don't work anymore? Why do you think people fall out of love, or they just don't? She goes, because they forgot why they got together in the first place. And she said, so, they let life take over. They let other people's relationship rule their relationships. She said that, you lose respect for each other, and you start to want to change the person you're with. And she said, if you just remember why you're with the person in the first place, what did you like about the person? She said, then, then you could kind of go back and say, yeah, that's what I was attracted to. And I said, that's interesting coming from her, because she was married to my dad for like 14 years, and then she was in a short-term marriage, maybe 10 years or something. And, she doesn't have a lot of relationship. And now she's by herself, which she says she likes. But I'm not sure she likes it or not. But she just doesn't want to deal with all the drama of trying to communicate and have a relationship.
Well, we're going to try to solve some of that today. I like a lot of what you said. Let's go back a little bit towards the beginning when you said is that when you're in a business relationship, you have skin in the game. You said that, right? Am I right?
It's your money.
Right.
So you tend to.
I love that.
The other thing you do is you tend to put up with more crap too, when you have money in the coming in, because sometimes you'll let somebody, necessarily say something to you, and you'll kind of you'll let it slide, because you go, well, do I really need to respond to that? And I think a lot of times in relationships, especially with women, we got to have something to say. Like, I got to come back and say something to that. And the other thing is too is that you don't have to always have a response. Right. You can just sit on something and go, you did something the other day, not to bring you into it, and normally I would have responded with some kind of sarcastic response back to you, but I thought, you know what? He's dieting right now. He's tired. He's stressed out because of, some other stuff. And I said, so I don't feel that that's necessary to respond to that, because normally you would not have said the way you said something to me in that way, normally. So I was like, I'm just going to let that one go, because it's not worth. No, it was just a remark. You were kind of short with me, and whatever. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to let that one go, because there's no point in why did you say that, because it would end up in a big disagreement on my end. And I just went upstairs and I said, oh, he's just not, he's probably hungry and had a bad day at work, or it was one of the days that your day was slow and you get all in your head.
I do.
You don't like when you're not busy, and just like I don't. I don't like when I'm not busy either.
So the skin in the game. It's good to remind people that in a relationship, it's not 50-50, right? Like, that means you're holding back 50. A relationship is everything you have, 100%, both sides. Where people get confused is what's 50-50, that's the divorce, okay? So when we talk about having skin in the game, like Heidi said, I agree. But people don't seem to understand or kind of put it into the thought process that when you're in a business relationship, we figure, okay, there's money there's clientele, there's our reputation, we have skin in the game. But when we're in a marriage or a long-term relationship, we have even more skin in the game because it's our actual life. Now we're dealing with love, we're dealing with caring, we're dealing with kids sometimes, we're dealing with, and you want to get to money, we're dealing with a lot of money too. So yes, there is way more skin in the game, although people don't think like that, in a long-term relationship, much more than an individual business. So that's something that's important to know. The other thing that's important to know is that nobody ever wins an argument. There is no such thing as winning an argument. And sometimes in therapy, what I'll do is I'll say something like, I'll say it to the man, you can never win an argument with a woman. Never, ever. And the woman goes, yeah, that's right. You can never do it. And I'm like, she fell into my trap too. Because the fact of the matter is that if you are together, you're on the same team. You don't want to win against your teammate. Mm-hmm. Because the only way to win is to take the upper hand, and you need to shove the other person down into a losing position. That is not conducive to a good relationship ever. What you need to do is collaborate and coordinate on certain things. And at times, you agree to disagree. That's it.
Or you renegotiate. That's the other thing.
Renegotiate.
You know, you hear all the time, well, when you first got together, there probably wasn't kids involved, and you know, you were still, even though you were married and living in the same house, it was just you and your spouse and whatever. And then all of a sudden the kids come and they take attention away from, you know, it puts pressure on both the woman and the man, because you hear men a lot of times will say, well, she just doesn't pay attention to me anymore. Well, you know, that's true, but women also go through their thing too, where they're not feeling very pretty because they're, you know, up to their eardrums and, you know, baby food and diapers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, you hear that a lot too. And I talk to some of my young clients that come in. I've known these people since they were in college and they're getting married and starting families. And I'll say, listen, you know, when you guys were together, it was different. You have kids now. So you need to get back together and renegotiate. Go out to dinner someplace neutral. Don't have this discussion at home where there's a chance that you can get into a blowout. Go to a restaurant, because the chances of you going off on each other in public are pretty slim. And you just sit down, you renegotiate, and you say to him, you know, in a loving way, I feel like I have a lot of responsibility now. How can we split the responsibility? How can we both be happy? So I have more time with you, so you're happy, so you don't feel neglected. Is there any way you can help me out and give the babies a bath, so when I get home, the baby's already bathed and we have more time together? Or could you do the dishes for me so that when I come home, that's done and I could sit down with you, you know? People don't do that. They walk around hostile, and especially women, they'll say, well, you know, well, he should know that, you know, he should make my dinner, or he should know. I'm going to say something to all the ladies out there right now. Men do not know what you want. You have to tell them, and they are happy to oblige as soon as and you have to ask it in a loving way. You don't go, get your off your ass and do the dishes for me. You know, you say, if you could help me do this, I would really appreciate it. And because we would talk to a client like this, right. I would really appreciate your help right now, because if you help me out, I can sit down on the couch with you and watch the game with you, or I could sit down and watch that movie with you, because I can't. This happens with us. I'm gonna put this out there. I like things to straightened out, and I have a schedule. And my thing is, if I come home and I already know I have this to do and this to do, I can't sit down until it's done. And one of the reasons I can't sit down until it's done is because I get really tired. As soon as I sit, I crash. So I go, okay, just keep moving, get the little chores done you need to get done, then you can finally sit down. Instead of me saying to you, you know, could you come over here and help me with dinner so that we can sit down sooner? I will do it all and then get mad, because I'm like, you're sitting there, you know, doing whatever. You're not just sitting there doing nothing, but you're doing what you feel is a priority to whatever it is. And I'm sure if I said to you, could you come over here and help me so we could sit down together, you know, make it where, you know, I want to spend time with you, but I can't spend time with you right now because this is important to me. That, you know, your paperwork's important to you, but my keeping the dishes put away, things are done, so when I get up in the morning, I don't have to deal with it. You know, so I tell my girls this. I said, you need to say it in a loving, well, why should I have to thank him? You know what? Why not? You know what, if that's all it takes is to say thank you for doing such an awesome job with the dishes, and I really appreciate it, and it makes your life that much easier, why not? It's so
Right,
what if it's a little ass kissing? You do it to your clients.
No, but
You know, I mean,
But
I do it all
let's-
day long to a certain degree. I have to be accommodating to my clients. I can't be, you know, I mean, seriously, when you're training somebody and they're not doing something right, do you go up to them and say, "What the hell is wrong with you? How many times have I showed you this exercise? You haven't figured that out yet?" You would never say that to a client. You would say,
Right.
"Okay, let's try this again and watch what I'm doing, and we'll you know."
Right. I think there's a lot of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is born into this. I think it's socialized. I think we can go through, and I hate to keep using her because she's not the only one, but like we live in such an Oprah-fied world, right? Like we have this lady that's a billionaire that sold this bill of goods that it's all about a woman's feelings and you just do what you want whenever you want. If you feel good, just do it. And then we just kind of follow that. Meanwhile, not even thinking that she's never had a decent relationship in her life. So she doesn't really know what she's talking about. But that's a whole nother thing. I think it really comes down to you can take any person and just say, listen, lead with respect, lead with love and decency, and you'll come up with most of the time the right answers. It's like when we talk about, like you talked about before, a man should know what a woman wants. Well, why? Every woman is different. So tell me what you want. And if the woman says what they want, that is the beauty of the relationship. That's why we're in the relationship, so I could learn more and more and more about you. And the more things that you can give me that please you, the more likely I am to do those things. Because I'm a goal-oriented person, as are most people. If you give them a goal to say, listen, I like this, this, and this, and this, it's a rare time when someone's going to say, I don't care. I'm going to do this. So as long as you put it out there, it's like, let's take it away from that relationship for a second and let's just see how that works to see if it really makes sense. So try this one day. Go to a restaurant. Sit down. When the waiter comes over and says, what would you like for dinner tonight? Just go, why don't you know? Try that. Try that at any store and tell me how it works. It doesn't work. The waiter's going to be like, I'll be back in a minute. Maybe you need a little more time. They come back, it's like, would you like to start off with a drink? I don't know. What do you think? That's the type of stuff that happens in houses here all over the country with men and women, expecting that the other partner is supposed to know what they want and when they want it. There's nothing wrong with saying, I want it this way. You know, I want it whatever. I want it at midnight doggy style with Pink Floyd in the background. It doesn't matter. Whatever
We went from food. We went from food to sex.
I'm a man. I'm a human. It could be anything, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. When you're in a relationship with somebody, everything should be on the table to talk about in its glory. Should it not? I mean, that's what open communication should be. It's. I think your mother is extremely intelligent, by the way. That one thing that she said, and I don't have it quoted, obviously, but she said, I think we forget why we cared about the person in the first place. I think we can add to that. I think we forget how we cared about that person in the first place. Like in the beginning, if you like that somebody's open and honest and can talk and can laugh and make jokes and talk about their social life, and all of a sudden you're in a relationship with them, and then you don't want them to talk to anybody anymore. You don't want them to be engaging. You don't want them to be likable. That's a recipe for a disaster, because now you're trying to mold this person into, I don't know, some type of robot that nobody else in the world will like. You know, and what do you think? I think
true.
What your mother said there was brilliant. I was going to write the whole show just off of that.
Well, no, surprisingly, coming from her, I was surprised because she does have a little bit of a, I don't want to say bitterness, but she does have a negativity towards men in general, other than my dad. It's surprising to me because she, you know, she'll always go back to my father and say, you know, there was nobody like your dad. I messed up. You know, I should have, you know, and again, that's another subject thing. But her experiences since then with men were never good. So
Right.
she finally just decided, you know what, I'm going to be by myself and, whatever. So when she came up with that answer, I was actually expecting her to come up with something cantankerous or something, and she didn't. She said it's because people forget why they were attracted to that person in the first place.
I think underneath all of that, those layers, right? We have maybe a touch of bitterness, maybe something there, but underneath all of that is pain, and it's pain because they're still looking to love somebody and have somebody love them. That's really the bottom line on all that. All the other stuff you see is like sour grapes, right? It's like, I didn't want those grapes anyway. Well, it's not really that. And one of the things that comes up in communication skills is this. If you follow most of the communication skills, they're amazing. They will work. They definitely will work. But you should know this, that the reason why they don't work for many people is that because you're running through that all of that language and that communication language, you're running it through personalities that might be disordered. That's where the problems end up, such as we'll talk about in a second, a positive sentiment override. In other words, you can withstand the little negativities from your partner because overall you're still friends. Right? And there's trust and there's love and there's caring. You're not going to destroy a relationship over like a little disagreement over dinner here or there. But the problem comes if you have a internal belief system that says all men or no men can be trusted. It means that your ability to build up positive sentiment override is almost zero. Because you could have 1,000 great things in the rowboat, but if your belief is that there's no trust ever, and that's a foreign concept to you, there's a hole in that rowboat, and you look at the rowboat after 5, 10, 15 years and go, we've got nothing in the bank account here. There's nothing here. There's nothing that's going to keep this afloat because somebody may have been injured narcissistically or a childhood trauma when they were young, and they believe that people can't be trusted. If that's where you are, we need to look inside to heal that, because if you can't heal that, you're not going to be able to communicate, and you're not going to be able to read all the signals either. Same thing if you're emotionally dysregulated. If you have conversations with people all the time, you can be the most engaging human being in the world. But if you're emotionally dysregulated when it comes to intimate relationships, it means the closer you get to another human being, the more fearful you get. And now you're looking around to see where the next shoe is going to drop. So a lot of the communication will not work for you. So you have to handle the inside traumas first. And that's a big lesson that I wanted to give today too, is that yes, the communication skills will work as long as you don't have overriding symptoms underneath all that will sabotage the communication skills. What do you think about some of that?
Well, I think it's true, and I think we go through different phases in our life too, where you'll have certain parts too that you can learn to function with your relationships, or maybe a lot of relationships are superficial, so you never hit that nerve. And then, you get to a point where maybe the nerve gets hit as you get older, you get more intimate, or, things, happen. I know with me, not with the relationship with you, because I don't want to really get too much into our relationship on the show all the time. But I know with Ava, one of my triggers was, with my childhood, was when she left to go live with her father. And I say this with love. I'm not saying it with any whatever. I'm over it. Angst.
Forgiveness.
I'm fine. But I know for me, I went through that time where I was angry, and I was like, didn't like my mother, and things in my childhood started to come up, and I was like, how could this happen? Just it was a trigger, but I didn't realize it was a trigger. I didn't realize that was a trigger to me in my childhood.
But it's good that you noticed it, right? I mean, having the awareness, then you start to look at it.
Well, I noticed it because I started not to like my own mother. Like I was like, I don't want to be around her, because there was little flashes of, my childhood that came back here and there, and my upbringing with her, and how I tried to be as a mom to her. and it just kind of overlapped each other and started crisscrossing. And for me, it was just a sad part for me too. Like, there was a lot of anger there was a lot of sadness, and I don't know, it just triggered a lot of emotion in me on a very deep level as far as a relationship with probably anybody, because I'm like, when you feel abandoned or you feel, betrayed, whatever it might be, those, like I said, all that stuff is over. You were young, and that was a lot of other stuff involved there. But I know it tripped me up, but I didn't know what was going on, and that was what was so frustrating to me, because I was like, why do I have this? I felt like I had a layer of black cloud that followed me all the time. Like, I always had low level depression, if that makes sense. My life was good, everything was good. I was where I wanted to be. I was with who I want to be with. And she was safe, and I'm like, why do I still feel this underlying sadness? And it wasn't all her because of her. It was because of, she was a catalyst to, I had to look at things about myself and how I felt about myself.
Right.
And then it carries over into the intimate part of our relationship, because there's a lot of, abandonment things there. There's trust, there's attachment things, and I attached myself very, very clearly to her.
Right.
From the minute she was born. So for me, that was huge. I was like, this was, for me, my first really love, if that makes sense.
It makes a huge amount of sense.
It's not the same as a lover, or like you or whatever, but she was my first love that I finally said, unconditionally, no matter what, I love this baby. And you know what? This baby loves me, because she's not going to judge me because of whatever deficiencies I have or I think I have. I'm her mom. So it was both unconditionally in both ways.
Right.
So when we went through our transitional period where I went through the divorce and she was going through her stuff, and, I didn't handle things right 90% of the time, it put me in a place that I was like, why do I feel like this? So.
But you're figuring it out.
And then I had to reattach to my mom. I've had to, go to my mom and talk to her and, be open with her, but not in a hurtful way. And just to get to the bottom of things, because you don't want to go. My goal, I told the girl I go to, my therapist, I said, my goal is to have an unconditional, loving relationship that I can love somebody unconditionally, and they could do the most horrendous thing to me and I still love you no matter what. And not be fearful. Do you know what I mean? Like, not live in fear all the time of, well, you're going to screw me over.
Well, I think we can both try to do that, because I do the same thing. Growing up, when you're trying to manage somebody else's emotions, a parent, right, that kind of thing, what happens is that you turn yourself into a perfectionist, and you don't think that you're good enough or worthy of anything unless you do things that are perfect. So that's part of that.
And yours was more on a, I would say, because your mom, she was a single mom and you didn't want to hurt her and all that. Mine was more of a fear-based thing,
right,
because I didn't want to get my mom mad. So I was always, trying to regulate myself and be good all the time and stay out of her way and, things like that. And you get to a point in your life where you're like, that doesn't work.
Right.
It stops working after a while.
But it's great that you looked into it. It's very hurtful. I can tell, right? It is. But that's what you need to do to grow, so you can start really living life.
And I still have, and this, I still have like underlying anger stuff. And guess who has it? Okay, now, these mothers out there, we walk around and we say, oh, I can't stand myself. I'm so fat. I wish my boobs were bigger. I wish my eyes were a different color. Your dad's this, your boyfriend, whatever. And we end up with that underlying hostility or that anger, anything that we have going on in our lives. And it doesn't always have to be that. It can be just the simple put downs. I had a client the other day say, I got to stop saying stuff about myself around my daughter, because she said to me the other day, Mom, my ass is fat. I got to go on a diet. I'm getting fat. Who says that? The mother. So now the daughter's looking at herself. This is her mom. If my mom thinks she looks bad, then I must look bad. And you try to do the best you can with your kids, and she has anger now, because my coping was not always sit down and handle the emotion. It was, just get your shoes on, I gotta go. We don't have time for this. Let's get moving. That was my,
right,
frustrations.
I think there's so many underlying issues.
Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of anger I get irritated really quickly, like short fuse.
How does it affect your relationships, though? We're talking about, relationships.
Mostly, I mean, it kind of affects my relationships with like, not really with you anymore, but like with Dad, and then with Ashley and everything, because I always get pissed off about every little thing that goes on, about money, about just mostly about money right now, but because like with Dad, I don't feel like I could talk to him. Everybody knows that I can't say anything to him without him basically not taking the blame for anything. I say, Dad, like even back then years ago when I would bring up, you remember when you beat me a lot of the times and Mom never knew about it, or the times where he would ignore me whenever I'd go in the room and be like, hey Dad, do you want to go outside and play? And he'd be like, I'm busy. All those times he like, I never did that. I was a good father. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you provided for me financially, but you sucked as an emotional caregiver. So I was like, I really didn't have anything because, you tried your best, but then Dad didn't do shit. And then, like, I basically had to kind of do for myself because you were trying to deal with Dad and all your stuff, so in the midst, I kind of was just on my own a little bit, which I don't blame you for, but
you can see, like, when Joe said before, that when you go into an intimate relationship and you have to start communicating, we tend to bring some of the, whatever the residual crap is,
100%.
into another relationship, and some people don't even know why.
Let me say this part real quick, because it's important. Then it's because when you hear that communication is the most important thing, what we have to realize is that communication is a symptom. The way you communicate is a symptom. So if I tell you, listen, you need to use I statements, you need to do some active listening, you'll look at me like I've got three heads. It's because the communication is a symptom of underlying causes. And if you have trouble communicating, if I statements to you are so foreign that you can't express your needs, there's something going on in here. If you can't look at another person and think about them first, again, it's a symptom inside of I'm angry, I'm depressed, I have been through a trauma. So it's very, very difficult when somebody comes in and they really want help with communication. It starts within first. It's like if you're an orange and I squeeze you, what's going to come out is orange juice. I can't make it any better than what's already inside you. Does that make sense to anybody? That's the way I try to explain it. It's real, but it's like, yeah, I mean, one of the greatest communicators, and I'll let you get back to your thing. I just love this story. Mayor Baba, he went on a vow of silence for 40 years. And he was known as one of the greatest communicators in the history of the world. As a matter of fact, that smiley face that you see, the yellow smiley face, even the emojis that they have, that's Mayor Baba. That's a picture of him. People went all over the world to sit in his presence just so he can look at them, acknowledge their existence, to say, yes, you are there. You have come all the way to India, and I acknowledge you. And he would just look at them and he would smile. Someone would talk and he would be like, he would nod in appreciation. But he never said anything. And on his deathbed, one of his disciples asked him, he said, listen, you've been on a vow of silence for like 40 years. Can you say anything? Can you tell us what the secret to a good life is? Do you have anything? And he very quietly, before he died, he said, don't worry, be happy. And that's where that comes from. It's from Mayor Baba, one of the greatest communicators ever. And yet he never said anything. So forgive me sometimes, because I'll tell you, I'm a Who fan, and it's always about see me, feel me. And I just feel that it resonates with me. I do this with Heidi all the time. I'm going, can you look at me? Can you look at me? Can you hear me? It happened 3 times. No, but
and guess what I'm doing? I'm usually making dinner and doing stuff.
But I love that you just admitted to that, because the fact is that making dinner is a flash of a second for you to say, "Hi, Joe. Did I stop you from making dinner?" Mm-hmm. If you would have said, "Come make," see, you're holding your hands together.
Oh my God.
Why am I doing something wrong? No, right? See, that's what I'm saying.
No, you're not.
It's that's why people have traveled thousands of miles to be in front of this guy who acknowledges them. You know, if you would just go, come make dinner with me, I would make 10 meals. That's all it does. We all just want to be seen in this world. We want to be understood. That's it. Like 3 times before we came here today, I was trying to talk to you, and you turned, went upstairs, walked out the door, and you don't even know you did it because you're so used to doing it. One time I smiled at Ava and I go, yeah, see, that's just, it's par for the course. That's what happens. And it's not to like make you feel bad.
It does make me feel bad.
Well, then,
because
see, that's
you
also
make me feel bad too when I don't wear my gym clothes and I wear something really pretty.
But that's a defense mechanism.
And my hair is done, and I walk around and you just don't see it. You're on your phone doing your music.
But see, this is
so
where
that can go two ways.
I love this part because this is where communication becomes difficult because we're throwing up the defense. I don't have any defenses. If you come to me and say, Joe, I'll say, you know, I'm really...
I think you're getting defensive right now because I came back and I said, this is something that makes me feel not important in our relationship. When I put something nice on other than gym clothes, I curl my hair, I look pretty, and you're doing your work too. You're doing you look up and you do your paper, you're on your phone, and I go, okay, well, I don't think it really matters that much that I look any different because he doesn't see it. And I go out of the house and I go, whatever. And I'm sure I make you feel the same way when you're trying to show me a video and I'm in the middle of something. And it's not that I'm trying to ignore you. I'm trying to get dinner made or I'm trying to get things done so I can sit down. So maybe it's the time isn't like the perfect timing. You know, or maybe I'm not standing in front of you at the perfect time either, dressed up to get the appropriate response.
Right.
You know, because you're doing paperwork, you're doing your assessments or whatever you're doing.
But right, you know, and it's a really good thing to bring up today because that's where if you read and someone says, well, I Googled communication and it said, use an I statement. I feel this when this happens. It doesn't work when someone has angst inside because I could say what I said and immediately you go, it makes me feel bad. And that's okay. But what that does is it stops the communication because I don't want to make you feel bad. So now I will cease to talk. And then that argument, or it's not an argument, that discrepancy comes to what they call gridlock, and it never gets solved. And it's because your defense mechanism is to say, I'm hurt, and you are, and it's okay.
But I think it too comes down to not only the communication thing, but I think it comes down to boundaries in relationships too. And we tend to, I don't want to say, think that what the other person is doing is not important because it's not the same priority as ours. So we have a tendency to kind of not, I don't want to say override the boundary, but we have a tendency to think that, well, what I need right now is more important than what you're doing right now. And so that's where the feelings get hurt because, like I said, you could be doing something and I can come over and the same thing and be interrupting, and you might think, well, I'm trying to get this done right now and I'm clearly overstepping a boundary. I don't think it has to do with bad communication. I think it has to do with me, again, communication is the unspoken stuff too, that in a relationship when I see that you're busy, if I keep going, Joe, you know, at some point I've been with you long enough, I should know that when there's papers on the table and you got your phone out, that you're doing assessments, that's probably not the best time for me to come over and go, how do I look right now?
Let me ease the discomfort. You shouldn't have to guess or feel anything. Okay? I'm always open to a conversation. The way my job works is that I do have to do my notes in private, and it's part of the work. If you come to me and say, are you working? Is that very important? I would say, at this moment, yes, but it can wait. Or, it's very important. Unfortunately, no, it can't wait. Give me this amount of time and I'll get it done. You don't have to guess and get angry and think, well, he's just looking up YouTube videos because he wants to like relive some old Who videos and Rolling Stones videos. And then you get angry going, I'm here. You don't have to do any of that. None of that is happening. It's a simple question of, I would like to see more of you. Who could ever argue with that if you would approach it in the real feelings. That's what I'm saying. Communication is very difficult because we have a lot of defenses. If the defenses are, you opened up a book and I'm going to take it personally and I'm going to be angry that you study, that is an issue. It becomes a very big problem. But if you say, it's getting late and I would like to spend some time with you, who would argue with that? Nobody would argue with that. It's what we call a very soft setup, or a harsh setup would be, are you kidding me with your work? It's like, because I would never think to go to your salon and go, hey, listen, would you hurry up with that perm? You're annoying the heck out of me because I want to do something else. It's just unfortunate that my work, sometimes I have to take it home or I have to study for certain tests and things like that. So you're seeing me at home and you think, okay, well, he's ignoring me. No, Joe's working. That's so. It just is a question. It's like I was saying before. If I were to have a need, I'm allowed to say, I'm feeling very frustrated when I would like to speak to you and you turn your back on me.
Well, but there's a communication on your end too, because when you see I'm in the middle of something and I just came home after I work long days like you do, and I'm trying to get dinner together because it's already 8 o'clock at night, you could come up also to your communication and say, I know that you're doing something right now. At least acknowledge that you see I'm getting dinner ready and say, but could you look at this video for a minute? This is the funniest thing. Because of who I am, I feel like, what I'm doing right then is not like I'm going to have the whole night to do that, to watch a video. And I feel when you do that, I feel disrespected in a way where I go, wait a minute, I'm trying to get dinner together. Can we watch the video once we sit down and eat? And maybe I should say that to you,
Let me end that
which
too.
Would be helpful
let me
too,
end that too. The answer is not maybe. The answer is always make believe you're playing pool. Okay? Call the shot. Right? Because like when I say something, you automatically get defensive and nothing happens. I'm totally open and willing to always talk. Like, even if you said it right now, go ahead, say, Joe, you're a jerk.
You are a jerk right now.
Give it your... See, and I'll let you say that.
Because you're not telling the whole truth, Joe. You're not telling the truth.
Because...
You need to let people know that you do show me videos, but they're usually when I'm trying to get out the door to go to work.
Listen, I understand.
I don't want to be mean about it. I'm just saying that
I understand.
I look at that in my sense and I go, this is a clear boundary to me that I'm like, wait a minute, I got to get this done. And I'll watch the video, but do we have to do it right this minute? And that's all I'm saying. I don't want us to get into...
No, listen, I understand. But the more you shoot here, shoot here, shoot here, and shoot here, nothing gets done. Like I said, I'm always open and willing to talk about everything. You can call me a jerk right now. You can do anything you want, but right now you're thinking... I shouldn't say that. It's possible that you're thinking Joe's a jerk because he's trying to communicate with me. Because I'm not doing anything bad. I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to show people that it is very difficult. Especially because, again, it's not use your I statements. When there's so much in here, people are trying to outguess each other, and that doesn't really work.
I think that's the problem, though, with it, is that people are just kind of like, when you try, I think for me personally, when I try to have a conversation with people, not everybody, but like certain people, I'll if someone's upset, or if I'm upset, I feel like when I try to talk to people about why I'm upset, I don't like talking to people because I feel like what I'm feeling is stupid. My whole life I felt like that, but I'll try to be like, you can talk to me about it, and as soon as I start talking to somebody, oh, well, I went through this today. I'm like, I just want to tell sometimes, be like, just shut the hell up, let me talk, like, because it's like, I don't really ever get to tell people, like, how I feel, but then as soon, like, I feel like I always have to listen, but then when I try to tell people how I feel, and I think that's the problem, like, when I start having discussions with Ashley, sometimes we'll have a discussion, and then it's always like, it just kind of gets to the point where I'll be talking about what's going on with me, she'll be talking what's going on with her, and then eventually it just gets too much, and we're just like, you know what, screw it, let's just not talk at all. Because
I think
it just gets annoying, because then it's like, like it's about me. No, it's about me, and I think that's the problem. It's that me and her are too focused on what's going on with ourselves. That's the reason why we're not communicating good, because I'm focused on my bills. I'm focused on the fact that I never have any money. I'm focused on the fact that my dad can be a jerk. I'm focused on all this other stuff that I'm not focused on her. And I think my, Nana was actually really good with that statement, because, that is the truth. I feel like because me and Ashley have been together for almost 5 years, that we probably both, mostly my part, I probably forgot why we even got together in the first place, because I think people change. And I also think that's a big that contributes a lot to communication, is if people change and they start liking different things, they become a different person, then you start to question what kind of things you can actually communicate with the other person. And I know that when I start communicating about certain things with her, there's a lot of triggers on both of our parts, things that we should not talk about, because like you said, when someone starts saying you're hurting me or you're making me feel bad, I know that's a major shutdown for me. If
Right.
I'm trying to talk to somebody and they say I'm hurt, I feel bad, I shut up. I don't even say anything after that, because it's like, what's the point? Like, everything I say after this, you're not going to hear because you're hurt, and that's that's the point.
Let me throw this in. John Gottman, who's probably the expert on relationships, he has what's called a love lab, and it's in Seattle. They've been doing studies on couples for about 40 years or so, and he can, within they say about 96%, he can tell you if someone's going to have a divorce or they're going to split up based on the way they speak to each other or the way they choose not to speak. And I want to do a whole show on what he calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? And it's 4 communication styles that when you start seeing them happen, he goes, listen, 96% you're not going to make it. And part of it is what you see is you can complain to your partner. In other words, I feel a little bit sad when I'm trying to share something with you and you turn your back on me. I wish, we could figure out a way to make that better. If you say, F you, look at the 10 things you don't do, that would be a 4 horsemen of defensiveness, because it's a brick wall. It's like, because if I'm trying to be a decent human being at that point, I will stop talking because I don't want to go any further. If I were not as evolved, and sometimes I'm not, but when I was younger I was really bad, I might start with another 4 horsemen, which would be criticism. Like, listen, you're really not a good person for doing that. I would never say that. You've never heard. But see, that when you start doing that, and then somebody turns around and says, no, you're a jerk, and acting like, say, they're better, well, that would be contempt. And if a person is hearing negativity on them, what they do is, typically men more than women, but they'll stonewall. In other words, they just shut down and don't say anything. Well, that's the 4 horsemen right there. You've got criticism, you have contempt, then you have defensiveness, then you have stonewalling. If you have all 4 of those, it's almost impossible for a relationship ever to work. And that's what we see, even I can prove it here, like we're talking about. If you very nicely, in a very easy setup, say, I would like a little bit more of this, and the other person says, yeah, but there's 10 other things you don't do.
Yeah.
It's like, I am totally willing to go over each and every one of those to your satisfaction.
I will do better when you show me a video to stop what I'm doing and look.
And-
Now that you brought it to my attention.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John Gottman, who is like, listen, I love John Gottman, and I really want to go to one of his seminars. Unfortunately, for me, and maybe not for anybody else listening, so I'll tell you. You can Google his name. You can look. There's a 2-day seminar at his house. It's $7,500, though. That's a little out of my league. So, but if it's not out of your league, you should go and do it, because he is an absolute genius when it comes to this kind of stuff. And going to your part, I will promise you that I will do anything on my part to be a better person. But you have to let me know what it is, right? Like, I've studied and I've passed a lot of tests, but I would not have passed any of those tests if I didn't study. right? Like, I need to know what the answers are. If it bothers you that much when you are making dinner, I will leave you alone, or I will help you do that. Now, understand sometimes if I'm in the middle of doing something that I need to do for my work, and I spend it making dinner, I will, after we have dinner, I will have to do that work and maybe go to bed a little bit later. So that's just part of the thing. You have to know that, right? That's just part of the program. Are we okay? Mm-hmm. Now, how much time do we have, John?
5 minutes. He just 3.
3 minutes. Let me see how quick I can do this. We're not going to be able to go over it all today, obviously. But probably the most famous communication relationship book is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's by Dr. John Gray. I want to go over some of his stuff real quick, and this is how we get really bad information out into the public. That book sold about 10 million copies. I have a list here of John Gottman's most popular book, and it's only 55,000 were sold. So that shows you the difference. John Gottman is a licensed psychologist. John Gray does not have a license. According to this, he just has a driver's license. That's it. He does not have a psychology license. John Gray has written 0 journal articles, no academic research, and he has studied exactly 0 couples. So he really has nothing other than a lot of money. John Gottman, on the other hand, he's written 109 journal articles and ridiculous 40 years worth of studying. So what's the difference, except the fact of in pop psychology, John Gray, Men Are From Mars, is going to get all the popularity. But I have to tell you, I wanted to talk about the first chapter, which we're not going to be able to do today. But starting right off the first chapter, he leads everybody since 1992 in a totally wrong direction. He talks about a man having to sit and listen to a woman whine, cry, and complain and vent and not say anything. Just let her talk, and she could be as negative as she wants. Now, I'm not saying a woman shouldn't talk and get stuff off her chest and have a nice conversation, but it's different. He's talking about literally, you just need to listen, shut up, and not say anything. Now, I can go over the studies, today won't be the day, of saying how destructive that is. As a matter of fact, coming home every day to yell in somebody's face about how their life sucks and how they're a part of their life and nothing is going well, it has extremely damaging effects on the man, thus the relationship. And if you want, there's an old saying, it's like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Well, the answer is practice, practice, practice. Well, how do you get angry and bitter? Practice, practice, practice. So if you're going to sit there and learn how to vent without trying to get any solutions, like John Gray says, don't fix anything. Allow everybody to keep their problems and hold on to them, because women like that. That's so sexist, I can't even tell you. That book is absolute garbage. That's... I could talk about this all day. Can I do this real quick? John Gray has a PhD, but he has it from a school that's not accredited, by the way. So his PhD doesn't count. He started off as a monk, having no relationships, decided he wanted to have a relationship. He got married, he got divorced, got married, got divorced. Married and divorced 5 times. He also married another lady who is also a self-help guru, Barbara DeAngelis. She's also been married and divorced 5 times. So between these 2 relationship gurus with no actual education and no studying, they have 10 divorces, and yet they tell you what to do, and people believe it. And it's not your fault, because it's all over the media. But I'm here to tell you the actual real answers from real people who have really studied. And we need to go over it more. But if you believe venting to your partner every day and not letting him talk, it's really a version of emotional abuse. Stop doing it. Have a conversation.
I'll put on a t-shirt.
Okay. Did we have
Shut
fun?
up and listen.
Yeah.
All right, then. Thanks for watching. This is the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Perroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini.
Ava Buddy.